Okay, so Celtic are into the League Cup final after a victory over Kilmarnock at the weekend. Tomorrow we continue our league campaign after 11 days away, and on Saturday we begin our Scottish Cup campaign. Guys, I mentioned the treble yesterday. I went there. We had comments coming in straight away telling me to calm down. That doesn't affect the team at all. Can I just point that out? Me saying that won't affect Ange, it won't affect the players. So, do either of you want to speculate on Celtic winning a treble at this stage? Go on, come on.
No, just one game at a time. Like Ange, just being the straight batter. Just keep straight batting everything, and just keep taking it one game at a time. And sure enough, I reckon they'll get there.
Well, we've been spoilt with trebles, obviously in the last 5 or 6 years, but obviously before that they're notoriously difficult to do. But we've achieved so many since Rodgers came in, and it just shows you how good we've been in the last wee while. But for me, it's once you get to this kind of time of the season, and we're obviously in one final already, that's when personally I do start looking at it. One game away, as Scott said, from one in the bag. We're 9 points clear, so we're in a solid position in the league, and then you'd always back yourself in the Scottish Cup as well. So I think I'm at that stage where I'm looking at that as an option, and something that I'm also quite confident we can do. But yeah, of course, as fans, that's fine for us to look ahead. I'm sure Ange and the players will be taking it one game at a time.
Yeah, that's the main thing here is as fans we're allowed to speculate and get a wee bit excited about the prospect of winning it. So I think that's fine. Scott, you've already mentioned the weekend, of course. You say it was a good game. You know, I agree. I think Celtic can play better, but I thought Kilmarnock were pretty good and actually took the game to us in spells. I'm wondering what you think, though, of the Hampden pitch. I seem to remember in your playing days you having to put up with a few dodgy surfaces at the National Stadium. I think the cup final against Rangers in the League Cup springs to mind immediately. It's got to be better for a national stadium, surely.
Absolutely, it does. You know, it's not good enough considering the amount of games that get played on the pitch itself. And if you're putting Queen's Park still as the number one priority to that football pitch, then it's absolutely wrong when you've got, you know, thousands upon thousands to millions watching this game and this spectacle, albeit, yes, the weather plays its part. Doesn't make it easy anyway with the surface, but you know, the way the surface was before the game just wasn't good enough. And now they're talking about relaying it and everything else. Well, it's going to be difficult for that to knit over the winter period, that's for sure.
Giakoumakis getting his goal at the end of the match, Scott, perhaps his last for the club if reports are to be believed. We'll come on to that in a wee second, but first of all, if it is going to be his last contribution, it's nice to score a goal late on in your career, I guess.
Yeah, always a nice way to leave, isn't it, Hamish?
Did you do that?
I might have done that, yeah. So,
Is that the Derby goal? Did you leave just after the Derby?
I left at the end, but I got injured. I done my hernia, so that was my last ever game for the club. So, yeah, it was one of them. But yeah, you obviously want more, and I think, look, I think for Giakoumakis, I think he would want to stay, but I think the frustration of not feeling like he's the main guy. And not being guaranteed that, I think that's what he wants and what he loves to be. So the frustration of that, and I think I can just see in terms of the relationship and how, you know, Ange can work, that the two of them have probably locked heads at times throughout this period, but both have done extremely well to, you know, keep on the same side and still get the best out of Giakoumakis when he's been asked upon. He's always gave his all, and he's always performed for me. He's never spat a dummy. He's done everything to the highest level of professionalism. So you've got to commend him for that. But I guess he's getting a little bit older as well. He's not exactly the youngest player within the Celtic squad, and he'll be looking to cash in as well before the end is near. You know, it's a short career. And he'll be looking to do that, and obviously wanting to play week in, week out as well. So I think they're more the reasons of him wanting to leave. But it's going to be disappointing to see him leave because he's been a great acquisition for Celtic as a whole since he's been at the club. He's done extremely well. So I think you know, we just have to wait and see in terms of who that replacement is. There's rumours now Nisbet as well from Hibs. We'll have to wait and see if that works out, or if it's still going to be the South Korean, or perhaps one other. So I'm sure Celtic have got a list as long as my arm. So just picking the right one.
Yeah, we'll come on to Nisbet shortly. I think you're right. I think Giakoumakis has been a pretty good player for Celtic. People going a little bit overboard maybe on social media. There's been comparisons with Edouard and players like that. But I do think he scored big goals for us, especially in that period between January and April last season when Kyogo was out. Without those Giakoumakis goals, potentially we don't win the league, Asim. What were your kind of memories of GGB if he does indeed move on as expected?
Yeah, positive memories, as you said. He was a key figure. I think it gets lost as well that he finished top goal scorer last season, and I don't think in that many appearances as well. And it was at such a crucial time where when Kyogo was injured, he came in the kind of this part of the season and was banging the goals in. I remember the hat trick at Dundee being one of my kind of favourite memories of him, because it was a late one that day as well, I think, which
Top off
helped
again.
extend our lead. Yeah, top off again, and yeah, that was at a time where I think the lead was only a couple of points, so it was a big win. It is a strange situation, though. Obviously, I'm trying to think back of strikers that have left in recent times, and usually it has been like you say, Edouard, Dembele, even Gary Hooper, who kind of wanted to go despite being our number one strikers at the time. Obviously, this is a very kind of different situation. I don't think it's so much that he, as Scott said, wants to go. He just wants more assurances of more regular game time. So, it's a difficult one because it feels on the face of it, the Kyogo GG part like combo that we've got is quite good. They're both big contributors. They both get quite a bit of game time and did last season. So I think that's why we're a lot of fans are maybe a bit frustrated that if he does go, because we feel that he can still offer quite a lot. So it would be a shame, but I'm pretty sure the club will have someone ready and lined up, and he'll go with a lot of fans' best wishes. You could see that on Saturday as well. Like the fans are, he's a fan's favourite, so I think there'll be kind of no hard feelings there.
I think that's my one frustration with the whole thing is that he's a fan favourite. He could have been a cult hero, I think, if he'd have stayed for longer. I get where you're both coming from, and clearly he's a guy who wants to play. He wants to start, he wants to score goals, and maybe we just can't offer him when we've got a player like Kyogo who's kind of our number one man at the moment. But I just think if he'd have stayed a few years longer, he could have really become a player we spoke about for years to come. And I kind of feel like we might kind of look back at him and think, yeah, he scored some great goals, but we only really got a year out of him because he only started playing in January. So it's only been 1 year of him. It's been brilliant, but I'm a bit disappointed it's going to happen. But I think Celtic will be fine.
Yeah, there will be. And look, I think there's a lot more to that at times as well. Like, take you in depth in terms of from a managerial perspective, and you're looking at the whole group and what Giakoumakis could end up being like for that group if he's not getting what he wants. So you have to think about the bigger picture when you're at the top of the club and thinking about, right, if Georgios Giakoumakis is not getting what he wants, how long can we, twist his arm to still be part of the group and still want to do the things that we're getting out of him right now? When does that become the end line and him starting to get frustrated, and then that affects the group? Not to say that that's happened just yet. I think there've been flittering moments where it's happened because, like all strikers, they all have egos. They all have them. We all have them. You all want to be the main man, and if you're not the main man and you feel it's unjust, then you're not going to be happy. And I think there is an element of that as well that's came into it. And I just think it's probably come to the point where and just went, you're not going to change. You're going to want this. In the end, it's going to end up sour. So we're better off just calling it quits while we're still ahead. And I think for that reason, I think it's probably a good time for everyone to call it a day, and everyone has good memories of him. He moves in a good period, and he can probably get a good deal out of it, and Celtic get a good deal out of it, and then Celtic just need to move on and try and find someone that's the next one that they can actually produce and make money off again, because that's the way it keeps turning over for Celtic.
Yeah, and I think Ange has already spoken about that and the fact that we shouldn't get too attached to our key players. It does seem like it's going to be a move to Japan. Urawa Red Diamonds for a fee of around £3 million. We paid £2.5 million for him 18 months ago. Never short of an opinion, Chris Sutton tweeted to say, I'm not sure what goes on behind the scenes and who's maybe coming in the door, but this seems bonkers letting Giakoumakis go right now for such a small fee. There's a league to win. You've already mentioned him, Scott. Kevin Nisbet. Inevitably, reports have emerged again. The Scottish Sun last night reporting that the Hibs striker is back on our transfer radar. He's netted 7 goals in 6 matches since returning from a cruciate tear. I think that was actually against us in February. The report also says that Celtic recruitment department are examining gameplay data to ensure he is fit enough to cope with our high-tempo game. He's got 18 months to go on his current deal at Hibs. What do we think about Kevin Nisbet, Scott? Is he good enough for Celtic?
Look, who am I to say is he good enough? I came from a similar position in another Scottish Premiership team scoring goals. So, he certainly can score goals at this level. It's whether or not he can do what Ange needs him to do, at Celtic level. And like you touched upon, that there'll be all the analytical background of it and having a real good look at him. And then you've got to ask the question, how susceptible he is again to injury. Is that going to cause problem? Celtic will look at it from a value perspective because he is running out of his contract. Can they get him a little bit cheaper? Therefore, if he does well, is there a sell-on value? I think all that is very attractive to Celtic. At the moment, I would have seen that one probably at the end of the season, but it might be just a case that it might be the right timing for both clubs for Hibs to cash in and for Celtic to need another number up front. I don't think it's going to excite the Celtic fans. Truth be told, at this point in time, they'll be looking for a more bigger name to come in. It won't necessarily be huge, but something with a little bit more pedigree at another level. But again, you just don't know with Nisbet. He does score goals, and could he do the job for Celtic if asked upon? But again, he's one at the moment. I think he's only getting better with games, and if he comes in at the moment, is he going to get games? Probably not. And then if he comes in, is he going to be ready actually to hit the ground running? That's going to be the biggest question if they were to sign him.
I've always liked him, Asim. I'm not sure he's Giakoumakis level, being honest, but maybe he could be. I think he's a few years younger. Ideally for me, he'd be like the third striker, if that makes sense. Not to say that he couldn't contribute, but you'd maybe have Kyogo, someone like Giakoumakis, and Nisbet as a third option. I think that would make us pretty well set in that department. Where do you come down in the whole Nisbet stuff?
Yeah, I agree totally. I think if he was a third option, yes, I think he'd be a strong addition. But if we're looking at where Celtic now want to be at, obviously Ange wants us to become a Champions League club, a team that can compete in Europe. Do I think someone like Nisbet will come in and command that first, number one spot? Is he going to be better than Kyogo? Personally, I don't think so. Is he a kind of very different option to Kyogo? Again, yeah, he's a different type of player, but I wouldn't say he's better than Giakoumakis. And the kind of fee that Hibs would probably want as well, you're probably looking at upwards of 4 million, 5 million. Again, you look at what we've been able to get for cheaper than that elsewhere. I think we can get better value for money. He's obviously just back from a kind of another layoff, so he's looking good right now. I seen his goals at the weekend; they were both very good goals, and likewise at Motherwell away last week. So I think it's one to watch and see how he carries on for the rest of the season, and maybe like Scott saying, maybe one in the summer that you could look as a third option, but. Do I think he's good enough to take us to that next level as a replacement for someone like Giakoumakis? Remember, we're looking to try and improve on what we did in Europe this season, and I just don't think that's the kind of player that's going to take us up a level.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the whole thing about this Ange thing is that when we sell players, he'll want to improve on them. Who knows? I mean, Nisbet could be, possibly. Scott, you already spoke about the fact you came from Motherwell to Celtic. Is scoring goals easier in a team like Motherwell or Celtic? Obviously, at a big club, you have better service, more chances, etc., but probably a bit more pressure as well.
Oh yeah, there's a lot more pressure, of course. I think the mindset I certainly took into it was that if I can score goals at Motherwell on limited chances, and if I go to Celtic and get more chances, I'm going to score goals. It's just a matter of understanding how you get those chances, because it's a little bit different in terms of how you have to fight for those chances playing for Celtic than what you do playing at a lesser club within the league itself. You're having to do a lot more work for those goals. It's how you can come into a Celtic side and simplify your game and allow others to do the jobs that they're special at, and you're clever enough to understand that you don't need to do the other side of certain things that you were doing at your previous club, and getting into the right areas within the box, and being a danger and being a threat on the shoulder, and allowing other people to play you in, because you've got another level of quality around you that's going to give you what you need. So you've got to adapt, and you've got to be mentally switched on to not getting caught into the trap of actually playing like the player that you are at the previous club to a certain level. In terms of some of the things that you were doing within that, you still have your instincts and you still have your confidence in what you're good at, and you keep that. But you've also got to go, right, do I need to do all that now? No, I don't. So allow that to develop, and then I'll get a little bit higher and I'll play off the shoulder a little bit more, and I'll be a little bit more intelligent about my moments, and getting into the right areas. Just make sure I keep getting the right areas, because that's where I'm going to get my numbers, that's where I'm going to score my goals, and that's obviously at the end of the day what everyone's looking at.
So I take it you almost have more faith in your teammates to create big chances for you when you're playing with better players?
Well, if I look to the left and right, when I played, I didn't have a problem. I just gave Aiden the ball.
Or Naka.
I just gave Naka the ball.
Yeah.
Why would I run with it? Or why would I try and, beat 2-3 players? You develop. I developed better as time went on, because I learned how to play even more so at that football club. But at the very beginnings, I simplified everything as simple as possible I could, to make sure that I was getting in the right areas for these higher level of players to find me. And I think that's what you have to strip it back sometimes, and allow all those good players who have been there already to keep doing what they're doing, and you just play off that, and then grow and evolve into the team itself.
It's really interesting insight, Asim, and I guess it's an interesting point in regards to Nisbet as well. If he does play for Celtic, his game could change a fair bit, and you could almost see a much improved player.
The thing with Nisbet, he's clearly a good finisher. I think he's always had that. His finishing ability is not to be questioned. I think from when I've seen him, the thing I used to maybe question a bit more was his all-round game in terms of his link-up ability. And from what I see, he's actually looked like he's bulked up quite a bit in the gym as well, which I think will enhance his game, because his second goal at the weekend there, was really kind of good hold-up play, and he looks strong. So I think it's these kind of things that if he can work on those and become a better all-round player, because I think that, again, and we don't just need a finisher only. We're going to create enough chances, we're going to score enough goals domestically. I think, again, the way I always look at it is, how are we going to become a better club in Europe? And that's the kind of yardstick of now how I think we approach our transfer dealings. We're looking for players that are going to improve us on the next level. So I think it is one to watch. Scott's a great example, someone who's came from another, obviously Scottish club at that time, and was brilliant for us and scored goals in big games and in Europe as well. But then there have been examples since then where some players haven't been able to make that step up. So it's just, again, about judgment, and Ange kind of, he'll be all over it. He'll obviously know what he wants, and he sees these players enough. So again, just kind of trusting him. But on the face of it, it's not one that I think could be a priority right now.
Okay. We'll park that chat for now. A couple of wee bits of news and chat before we move on to tomorrow's game. B team captain Matthew Anderson has signed a new contract until June 2025. He's 18 years old, born 8 months after Seville, guys. Just let that sink in. He's a left back. He actually has the number 63. So there's obvious comparisons there with Kieran Tierney. The reason that I mention him, other than his new deal, is that I've been told to keep an eye on him as a potential Celtic first team player. I was at a B team game round about a year ago at Celtic Park, and I had 3 different people, scouts, coming up to me and asking me for a wee bit of information on him. I think he's had injury troubles, but as I say, he's the captain of the B team, left back. So Matthew Anderson, I think, is a name to keep an eye on in terms of first team activity. Today is Dyson Maeda Day as well. It's a year since he scored 4 minutes into his debut against Hibs. I just think it seems a lot longer than a year. But it's been a funny year for him. It's been kind of up and down. I think it's interesting to mention now, Scott, because I feel like he's finally been loved by the Celtic support at long last. We realise what he is, and he seems to me like the next Greg Taylor or Anthony Ralston in terms of becoming a real fan favourite after a little bit of criticism.
Yeah, look, but I think if you look at the very beginning, everyone absolutely loved him, and in terms of his impact at the club and his work ethic and his work rate. But we're starting to see the quality that goes with that work ethic and work rate now. Some of the quality he's producing on the football pitch since he's come back from the World Cup has been exceptional, and obviously just the taking off of him was obviously the game at Easter Road and how he performed that day. After missing that really, really bad miss that he missed, he could have went back into his shell because he'd had a couple of bad, misses earlier on the season, particularly in the Champions League. But then he scores that wonderful goal and he just takes off. And sometimes it's just those defining moments that turn your season. And I think that was one of those moments. That goal just sparked him, and he's been exceptional ever since then. It's been great to watch, and I think all the Japanese have had their dips, though, haven't they? Since they've come to the club, they've had the highs when they first come to the club and the expectation of all the support. That's the way it should be consistently, and then they've just had these little dips within their careers so far, short careers as it's been for Kyogo and Maeda, and obviously Hatate themselves, and they're just going that way again. They're just going up the way again, which is really great to see. Throughout the three of them, I think they're just starting to get better and better again.
I think, Hatate, Maeda and Kyogo, there's barely a game goes by where all three of them don't contribute in some way with an assist or a goal. It seems every single match at the moment. I mean, since we came back for the World Cup, Kyogo's got about 4 goals, Maeda's got the same, and I think Hatate has at least 2, so they're all weighing in different ways. Maeda's excellent, and I think there's more to come from him as well. I really hope, as I said in yesterday's video, what we're seeing right now isn't a purple patch. I hope this is the Dyson Maeda of the future, because he's a star the way he's playing at the moment. I mean, he's brilliant. St Mirren tomorrow night. They are 6th in the table. They lost narrowly to Hearts in their last game on Friday night. You may remember and realise that they're the only team who have beaten us so far in the league. Asim, I reckon we might want a wee bit of revenge tomorrow night.
Yeah, I don't think Ange will read too much into that and stuff like that, revenge. I don't know, Scott, you'll probably be able to say more on whether that plays into the minds of players and managers, but I think they're a difficult team. I think especially their home form. I think away from home, obviously they've not been as good. So it's a great chance for us again just to rack up another win. It's a good fixture for us. We've got a nice wee run of fixtures. I think you put in your graphic yesterday that we've just came through maybe our most difficult period since the return after the World Cup with quite a few tough away games, and we've came out unscathed. So now we've got a good few home ones to look forward to, and I don't think the players will kind of, well, you never know, the players might. Is that something that you think about, Scott?
Come on, it must be.
We've had?
It depends on the situation and how lippy the opposition got when they beat us. It would all boil down to that. But realistically, I think Celtic will be that confident that I think you always go into a game at Celtic Park always excited, always looking forward to playing at home in front of your home fans and just creating chances. Like you believe all the time that you're going to get chances at home. You're going to create chances. You're going to be on top, and you've just got to find that goal as early as you can. If you score early, then the day becomes a lot easier within itself, because then there's no build up the frustration with the fans, and the stickier it goes, the harder things become. Everything tightens up within the game. It's just natural as a human being. Sometimes that happens, but this team doesn't seem to do that. They seem to be relaxed a lot of the time, and they keep with the process. Stephen Robinson and St Mirren will make it very, very difficult. They're always very organised. I always say that about Stephen Robinson's team. they're not always the most positive in terms of how they come out to play. They'll be very, very rigid and very, very compact, and it'll be one of them that if Celtic do break them down earlier, it will be a long night for St Mirren, because I'm not sure that they'll have the capability to then come and open up, because if they do, then Celtic will really tear them apart. But for as long as they can keep it tight, it'll be a difficult evening for Celtic themselves. But I just think the way that Celtic are right now, in terms of on the high of the game on the weekend, it'll be interesting to see how many changes that are made for this game. I think because the game on the weekend would have took a lot out of the bodies, particularly the heavy football pitch and the weather and everything else that it was. So it'll be interesting to see how many changes Ange makes for this one.
We'll obviously hear, you'll have heard from Ange by now. At the time of recording, he's not spoken to the media yet. If he says anything incredibly interesting, I will put in a wee segment now. But otherwise, we'll move on. In terms of team news, it's going to be interesting to see the team. I do think there will be a few changes, as Scott says. I could see Johnston coming in. In fact, this is my predicted 11. It's Joe Hart, Johnston, Carter Vickers, Starfelt, Bernabe, McGregor, Hatate, O'Reilly, Abada, Kyogo and Jota. So I know what you're going to say. Moy and Maida nowhere to be seen. I just think Ange will rotate. And I think the subs were really good on Saturday. I think O'Reilly came on and looked really neat and tidy. Abada was lively. So I'd like to see that. Really want to see Jota getting back to his best as well after his kind of recent issues. Scott, what do you want to see from Celtic tomorrow night in terms of performance?
Look, I think it's not been the full gear, into sixth gear for Celtic for a while, So it'd be nice to see them, play free flowing. But this time of the year, that's very difficult to do. The weather conditions and the games piling up. It's very difficult. It's just getting the job done and being professional about it, and just making sure you're clinical when the chances come. And the evening matches at Celtic Park, sometimes the expectation and the lack of atmosphere when it's a Scottish Premiership game to a European game midweek can be like, that you guys are there. It starts off very, very quiet, and it's up to the players to generate that atmosphere and get it going. So you always know that as a player, and you've got to start the game well. They've got to really start the game well tomorrow night. And if they can, then, like I said, if they get an early goal against St Mirren, I think they'll really open them up, because St Mirren are going to have to find a way to try and get back in the game. And I just don't see that happen. I think it'd be damage limitation for them in terms of the way that Stephen Robinson's setup will be to totally frustrate Celtic, keep it compact, and hopefully pick up something at the other end, either on a counter attack or maybe a set piece, which we know that Celtic, even again on the weekend, that's their kryptonite for me. In terms of wide free kicks, corners, you just feel if you're in opposition that's where you can get at Celtic.
Yeah, Kilmarnock had a good few chances from that. The game has sold out tomorrow, Asim. The club have just announced that in the last kind of hour. So that's pretty brilliant. I mean, we're probably going to sell out every league home match this season, which is like, I don't know if that's ever happened, maybe not since the Martin O'Neill days, but it's just another game tomorrow night. And as I said in yesterday's video, every league game feels like a step closer to the title if we win it. I know there's a way to go yet, but it just feels with that 9-point advantage, like if you keep it there, and the games are going to quickly run out for our rivals.
Yeah, that's been six games I think in the league since the return of the World Cup, and it's gone by so quick. It feels like just a couple of weeks ago we were talking about that, and now
it'll be the split soon.
We're just ticking the games off, and as I mentioned earlier, it's a nice wee run of fixtures we've got at the moment, all winnable games. And yeah, like you mentioned about the crowd, I feel you're right, Scott. Some of these midweek ones, I remember the Livingston one a couple of weeks ago as well. It can start off a bit quiet, and it is sometimes down to the players to maybe get an early goal, which then just lifts it. I think sometimes the longer the game goes on, it becomes a bit more of a struggle. With St Mirren, am I right in saying Carter Vickers missed that game, didn't he, last time? And I think they got quite a bit of joy.
And so did Starfelt. It was Welsh and Jens.
Yeah, Welsh and Jens. And I think they went with Ayunga and Main and got quite a bit of joy out of that. So it'll be interesting to see if they go with that kind of approach again, given the success last time. But with Carter Vickers back and Starfelt, you just feel that we'll be a lot more prepared and ready for that. And yeah, I'm expecting a difficult game. I don't think it will be easy. But yeah, at this point, it would be great to get another kind of good performance. I think the Hibs one was the last one where we played really well. The Hibs away, and then I think St Johnstone at home was decent as well. So it'd be good to get a performance and the result. And I think you're right. We'll see a couple of changes to freshen things up.
Yes, looking forward to it. We'll have a reaction for you at full time. Hopefully, another 3 points in the bag. Scott and Asim, thank you very much for your time yet again. Thank you for watching this video. As I say, we'll be back tomorrow night after full time.